Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, why you should switch to Gongfu tea brewing. In this video, I'm going to be tasting a raw PuErh tea and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on why Gongfu tea brewing is the superior way of brewing most teas in terms of the quality in the cup. This video is going to go under the basic tea educations and the single tea tastings playlists. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then please give the video the thumbs up. The more thumbs in the air, the more tea videos are going to come your way. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then go click that button. So I know a lot of you out there already do Gongfu brewing. You already know what's up, but keep watching because you are my Gongfu ambassadors. I want you to go out and spread the word about Gongfu brewing if you're not doing so already. And hopefully some of the things that I'm going to say will help to convince some of your friends to go Gongfu. So before we get into it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the tea that we're drinking today. This is Gongfu 2016, the successor of Gongfu 2015. Every year we try to bring in raw Gongfu PuErh tea. For those that don't know, Gongfu is ancient tea tree material PuErh tea. And these teas have been selected especially for their ability to be drunk young. So this is why we call it Gongfu. So Gongfu 2015 came from Jingmai Mountain. It was a very successful harvest for us. And I think the last few packs are still in stock, but we're about to run out. And so Gongfu 2016 is now in stock. So let's scope this tea so you know a little bit about it. Scope stands for season, cultivar, origin, picking, and elevation. The season for this tea is spring. This is a spring 2016 tea. The cultivar variety is the Daiyezhong Assamica variety, which is the classic PuErh variety for the most rich and complex PuErh teas. O stands for origin. As I said, we previously got our 2015 Gongfu from Jingmai Mountain. This one comes from Shigui Mountain. Now we tried to find another one from Jingmai Mountain. For some reason, I don't know how you PuErh heads felt out there, but Jingmai this year in 2016 wasn't great for us this year. So we searched around a lot and we found a worthy successor in the very much revered Shigui Mountains in Yunnan province. So this comes from Shigui. The picking, this is a bud and up to 3 or 4 leaves. The amount of leaves they pick doesn't really matter because it's always sorted out afterwards. So they take out the huangpian, the yellow leaves. So any leaves that are not tender enough to make tea, they'll take them out, but it's usually 3 or 4 leaves. Finally, the elevation, this is an 800-meter elevation tea. So we've scoped this tea and we're going to be tasting it in a little bit. But before that, I want to give you my thoughts as to why Gongfu brewing is better than Western brewing. Now, I'm not going to be talking today about lots of aspects in Gongfu brewing that I love. For example, the social aspects of Gongfu brewing or the aesthetics of Gongfu brewing. Instead, what I want to focus on today is simply, does Gongfu brewing produce a more delicious tea? Many of you don't know this, but I used to work in the music industry. I was a sound engineer and producer, so I spent many years of my life in sound studios, recording musicians, mixing music. And it's interesting because as my passion has turned to tea, I've noticed similarities, and I would like to present to you an analogy in terms of tea and music, which I hope demonstrates why Gongfu brewing is superior to Western brewing. So, the leaves. The leaves represent the musical instruments. There's no point in producing great music, or you can't produce great music if the musical instruments are no good. You can get plywood violin or you could get a Stradivarius. So the leaves are the starting point. That's the musical instrument. The producers and farmers out there in the East, they are the musicians. So you can have amazing instruments, but if you don't have the right musicians, it's not going to be able to produce the right sound. So you need the musicians and the musical instruments. Right. Now, the brewer, that's you. The brewer is the producer, what I used to do. Your job is to try to basically take the musicians and the musical instruments and get that sound and express it in the way that the musicians had intended. To do that, you have some variables. The first is teaware, and I equate teaware to the sound equipment, either the recording equipment or the playback equipment. You can have the most incredible music, but if you're listening to it on tinny headphones, it's not going to be that great, right? So PuErh is really fundamental, and I know a lot of people out there that are PuErh obsessed understand what I mean. You get so much more enjoyment if you find the right PuErh. So PuErh is the equipment. Then you have 3 brewing parameters: the temperature, the water to leaf ratio, and the steeping time. The temperature affects what levels of different compounds are extracted from the leaves. And so in my analogy, I equate it very much similar to equalization. So you know, on hi-fis or any nice audio equipment, you'll have bass, you'll have treble, you'll have mid-range, you may have multi-band equalizers where you can tweak the levels of each band to make a perfectly balanced and sweet sound. So the temperature is equated to the equalization. The steeping time, in other words, how long you brew for, is equated to the volume, how loud you're turning the music up. Now, if you don't get the equalization right, it doesn't matter how loud or how soft it is, it's not going to sound right. Similarly, even if you get the equalization right, if you turn it too loud, it distorts and the sound starts to become fuzzy. Similar with tea, it's exactly the same thing. So getting the right steeping time is very important. And now finally, the water to leaf ratio. And this is where Gong Fu brewing is key. Because Gong Fu brewing, for those that don't know, is the main difference between Gong Fu brewing and Western brewing is the amount of leaf that you use to water. So in front of me, I've got the amount of leaf that I would use for Gong Fu brewing for 150 ml. This is about 7.5 grams of Gongfu 2016. And here I've got the amount that I would be using for Western style brewing for the same amount of water. So 1.5 grams for 150 ml. So 7.5 for 150 ml, Gongfu style, and this is 1.5 grams per 150 ml. This is Western style. So you can see visually the difference in the amount of leaves that you use. And when we go back to that analogy with music, the difference is the richness of the sound. So if you imagine that every one of these leaves is a violin, so you can imagine that a smaller number of violins, maybe a quartet of violins, is going to produce a different richness of sound compared to a whole symphony or to a whole string section, maybe 24 violins. You are never, no matter how much you turn up the volume, you will never be able to get the same richness of sound from the 4 violins as you would from the 24 violins. It's just not possible. And this richness, in terms of flavor and in terms of texture, is the key difference as to why Gong Fu brewing is the best way to get the most delicious tea. And I want to not just explain that to you theoretically, but I want to show you. So let's start brewing. Right, I have here my Gong Fu Guru. Those of you who know us know the Gong Fu Guru very well. So we have our tea tray here. And you know what? Gong Fu brewing can be as complicated or as simple as you want. So don't get too hung up at the beginning if you're just starting out on Gong Fu brewing on whether or not you need all the teaware, because you don't. Obviously it's nice to have it, but you can start just by literally increasing the amount of leaf you're using to water ratio. So here I have 2 150 ml pots, and what I'm going to be doing is making sure all the variables are identical except for time and water to leaf ratio. So I'm going to be putting in, let's do this, in here, in the Western brew style, my 1.5 grams of leaf. Here. And in here, I'm going to be putting my 7.5 grams of leaf. Now, obviously, because I am putting about 5 times the amount of leaf in the Gong Fu style, I'm going to be brewing the Western style 5 times as long in order to equalize the strength. Now this is to show to you that it doesn't matter how much longer you brew, you will never get the same richness. So I have here boiling water, so nearly 100 degrees or about 210 Fahrenheit. Now we're going to give them both a quick rinse first. So that will heat up the teaware, make sure we get a nice even brew, and it will pour away any of the broken leaves, if there are any, but these leaves are really nice and whole. So that gets poured away. Same here. Right, so we're going to be doing 100 seconds. Here we go. And we start. There we go, 100 seconds. And then this one here, I'm going to be brewing for 20 seconds. You can hear that going. I wish it didn't have a sound. Anyway, no matter. Oh, can I turn it down? I can. Good. All right, so we're going to allow that to infuse. And what I'm trying to do is achieve the same kind of color infusion and a similar kind of volume. So remember, we're turning the volume up every second that we're leaving this to brew. We're turning the volume up. But what I hope that we'll notice is that it doesn't matter about the volume, the taste and the richness will be different. So 40 seconds in, time for me to smell these leaves a bit more. Oh, it's got an incredible like molasses and salted caramel. It's also got some of the appliness of the Jingmai, but it's more of a cooked apple. And it's got a little bit of kind of humid forest, you know, the classic Yunnan forest, that humid, warm summer forests. But that cooked apple and sea salt and caramel, kind of like a toffee apple. It's really, really nice. How are we doing? All right, so we are nearly there. So that's 80 seconds. I want to do this quite geekily, make sure I get this right. Otherwise, I know I'm going to get some comments out there saying I didn't do it properly. So now we're up to 90 seconds. And we are ready to pour. Okay, so that's my Western style brewed Young Gushu 2016. Now let's do the same here. Let's pour this in. And we are going to be doing 20 seconds here. Well, it's still going, so I can see where we're at. I'm excited to taste. This tea has come recently, about it arrived about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I haven't had a real chance to sit down and have a session with it yet. So here we go. So that's 20 seconds. Let's see first of all whether or not the color is about the same. I will show it the camera. This goes away, take the lid off. Right, let me just pause this for a sec and get back to my camera screen here. Make sure everything's in focus. Right, here we go. I'm going to bring this to you and then focus it. So that's the Western. And this is the Gong Fu. And I think I've done not a bad job there. Not a bad job. They're pretty similar in terms of color. Although, you know what? I can already see, and I don't know if you can, probably it's a bit difficult, but I have the light going through these tea liquors, and I can already see that this one here just looks much thicker. Just has more of a thickness to it. You know how they say with wine that some wines just leave a nice kind of streak on the glass? It just has a thicker body to it. Let's give it a taste. So, which should I taste first? Let's taste the Western first. Cheers, everyone. Cheers, tea heads. Well, if I was served this in a restaurant, and you know restaurants always serve Western style, it really winds me up, but I would be quite disappointed because I'm not getting too much. The color of the liquor looks nice. The texture is quite flat. I am getting some taste, kind of a slight fruity taste, like an Asian pear. But that warm, butterscotchy, salted caramel aroma is certainly not coming through. I'm left with very little sensation in terms of any kind of grip in the mouth. And it's just tasting very yeah, it's tasting quite flat. Let's go with this one, Gongfu brewed. I can already see, just by looking at the bubbles, you know, one of the great ways to figure out texture in terms of tea is not just, is even before you put it in your mouth, when you're pouring it, you see little bubbles, and the way that they kind of move on the surface demonstrates a lot about the thickness. When you see that it's kind of jelly-like, it has a much thicker texture. Let's give it a taste. A world of difference. So now the texture is very lubricating, slightly oily, thicker. And the taste is, okay, so I'm getting that butterscotch, that warm, salty, dark caramel, and I'm getting a slight pear refreshment, not apple so much, but more pear. And more minerality, so much more texture. When I swallow, I'm feeling that grip at the back of my throat. That grip and this, just the sensation that there's a lot of minerality, that there's a lot going on. My tongue is starting to kind of react, actually physically. It's kind of puckering a little bit and tingling a little bit. So it's really giving me this intense tea experience. And remember, as you drink more, it'll build up more and more flavor as you lay down layer upon layer upon layer of the minerals and all the good stuff which is in the tea. I don't really want to go back to this one, but I will. Really, it tastes very, very weak. It tastes quite flat. It has the minerality, sure. It's got some structure, of course. It has some flavor, and the flavors are nice. But the level, I mean, if you go back to the music analogy, it's even more than just richness. It's like, you know, you've bought tickets to a concert and you're in the car park versus being in the auditorium. You can kind of hear it, it's there, but it's just not very loud, and it's a bit muffled, and the texture and the bass and the feeling in your body, the physical sensation of the music is very, very muted. You're only getting a kind of whisper of what it should be. Compared to this one, the Gongfu way of brewing, much thicker, much juicier. Now I'm in the auditorium. Now I'm tasting, or I'm hearing the music properly. It is just a world of difference. And those of you who brew Gongfu style, I know you know all of this already. Because once you go Gongfu, you really, really don't go back. It's one of those things, I implore everybody out there, try Gongfu brewing. You don't have to buy the whole set. You don't have to go crazy and spend lots of money on teaware. Just take a lot of leaf, and don't be scared, because, you know, I see people and they're putting little pinches of leaves in, and they're kind of going, oh, I don't want to waste, it's very expensive tea, I don't want to waste it. But you are wasting it by doing that. You really are, because you're not getting the full flavor of the tea, and instead you're getting a dumbed down, weakened, diluted version. And the farmers, the producers, the sellers, all that we're trying to do is to try to show you how wonderful this tea is, and instead what you're doing is producing or playing that music back over really, really bad headphones at a really low volume, and it's just not going to give you the flavor that we want you to taste. So you're not wasting tea if you're using a lot of leaf. Believe me, just keep infusing it, keep hitting it with water, and you will really experience the tea. Your knowledge, your ability to taste the tea will improve. Everything will improve if you go Gongfu style. So please go Gongfu. And those of you who brew Gongfu, you are the Gongfu ambassadors. I want you to spread the word about Gongfu brewing. Really tell your friends, get them to understand that this is the way of brewing tea. This is not some speciality way. This is not some, ultra geeky, only for the higher echelons of tea drinkers way. This is the way that you should be brewing tea. So I'm going to keep drinking this. Ooh, Oh, I'm just getting this nice jasmine hui gan, this jasmine sweetness which is rising from my throat. It's quite a soft finish, soft to dry, but I'm getting this amazing jasmine-y, floral, orchid, that floral sweetness rising from my throat. Beautiful, delicious. I'm going to keep drinking this. I hope that I've done my utmost to convince you to brew Gongfu style. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then please give the video the thumbs up. Check out our YouTube playlist and let us know if there are any videos that you would like us to make. If you're ever in London, then please come and visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions or comments, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm Don May from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from the tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff, Gongfu style. And spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.